You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/cheapgeek. So it begins again. Welcome to the CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 5, Episode 210.
In this episode, Voodoo Dolls, Do Cars Have Souls, and Creepy Storytime with Johnny B.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so here we go. Welcome to the podcast. If this is your very first time tuning in to the CreepGeeks Podcast, we're glad to have you here. Yeah. It's going to answer my own questions.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're a long-time listener, short-time lurker, or however that goes, we're glad to have you as well. Good to see you back.
Yeah.
This is a super fantastic episode because this episode has the fantastic Johnny B. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a live stream that we did.
Yeah.
And we did this live stream, and we had a very special guest, Johnny B.
Yes.
And we kind of kicked it off because we were talking about something we thought was really interesting, and we're like, you know what, let's get a hold of Johnny B. Because he has an intimate knowledge of what we were talking about.
First-hand experience.
Which wouldn't also be intimate knowledge? Of course it would, yeah.
Yeah.
So we kind of dragged him in on that and said, hey, would you like to be on the... And so he was, and he did, and we have him as an interview. And what we've done is we've decided to play that section for you guys. Because not everybody watches us on the internets. Yeah, it's all good. So that's what we're going to talk about. So this episode is Voodoo Dolls, Do Cars Have Souls, and Creepy Time with Johnny B.
Yeah.
Creepy story time. So, yeah. Here we go. You ready?
Sure.
All right. So before we move into the podcast, we have to do the two very special things that I added last couple episodes ago. Remember?
Yeah.
All right. So the first thing is our 14 term of the day, followed by random weird thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah. So our 14 term of the day is Tsukumogami. And I'll say that again so I can make sure I doubly pronounce it incorrectly. Tsukumogami, right? And that is a collective name given to a type of yokai, Japanese spirit or monsters, which are haunted, which basically are haunted in like household objects, right? It's a Shinto belief that everything has a spirit. So in Japanese folklore, it's possible for inanimate objects to become sentient.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Sentient.
It's like subcategorized. Individual ones have different names. It gets really involved, but we're just going to stick with basically Tsukumogami.
Isn't that what I said?
Close.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're not good pronunciators here on the CreepGeeks Podcast, but really what it boils down to, right? These yokai spirits, these Japanese spirits or monsters, which basically are haunted in object, or just basically haunted everyday objects, right?
Yeah.
And since it's a Shinto belief that everything has a spirit, this goes all throughout Japanese folklore. But I did find that one thing sort of makes this whole thing sort of interesting. Aside from the fact that it sort of ties into what we're going to talk about in this particular podcast episode, is that it says the transformation occurs on their 100th birthday.
Oh.
As only after serving people for a century can objects gain souls.
Oh.
Yeah. Which I was like, that's a long time. I mean,
I think that's why, like, a lot of, like, I guess in Japanese culture, taking care of things that you own and honoring those things, if they're like a gift, is so important. Because if it lasts a long time, then it gets its own little spirit or something.
Yeah, and if it's been mistreated in that century, it can become vengeful and causes havoc for its current owner.
Oh, wow.
So, If you buy secondhand things, beware. And what do we do sometimes?
We
go a little thrifty, get some thrift store stuff like a lot of people do. Nothing wrong with that. Just be careful.
Yeah. Well, that ties into what we're about to talk about. But
Yes.
We should probably do a whole episode on things not to buy from the thrift shop.
Absolutely. You should write that down because, my memory and your memory lasts about an hour when it comes to this kind of thing. Because, I actually have a notepad file, the most powerful program on your computer. And we could put that in there. So you're going to put it in the show notes. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to copy and paste it right out of the show notes into my notepad file.
Okay.
Okay. So I thought that was kind of cool. I'm like, well, this ties right into it. And during the live stream that we did when we were actually talking to Johnny B, we actually talk about yokai. Yeah. Because you bring it up. And so it's like yokai is sort of a child term of the Tsukumogami.
Well, we link to a really good resource that we found for this 14 term of the day. And it goes into some of the more popular yokai in households, in Japanese culture.
Yeah.
And some of these sound familiar because you may have seen them in some animes. Like, I remember Kasa Obake, which is umbrella ghost, because there's a couple of animes where the umbrella will attack people or it'll hide in the woods, just really weird random stuff. So it just sticks out in my memory. But it makes me wonder, what I don't see in here is, do they have one for cars?
Probably not.
Yeah. So,
because I think I don't know. See, that's the thing.
And that's the thing. 100 years, have cars been in Japan for 100 years? I don't think they have yet.
Yeah, they probably have.
Maybe. Okay.
Because what would 100 years be? 1921. Yes, that's right. We are that old. No,
Oh, the first car debuted in Japan in 1898.
There you go.
All right.
So, legit question, but it kind of is what it is. All right, so here's my random weird thought. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie Frighteners?
I want to say I have.
Michael J. Fox is in it.
I don't think I have, though.
And all the people, I'm not going to give anything away. This movie came out in 1996, so if you're like, oh, man, you gave it away, well, come on, it's old, right? Okay, so Michael J. Fox in this movie, he's what they call a psychic. Right? The people in the movie call him a psychic.
Okay.
And really what happened was he had a near-death experience, and from that near-death experience, he could see spirits.
Okay.
Now, in his near-death experience, and being able to see, I don't want to give away too much, because it actually is worth watching.
Oh, this was a Peter Jackson film.
Thanks for taking away all the build-up to what I was going to say. Seriously, you just took the wind right out of my... But yeah, basically what it boils down to is... one of the neat things about the movie was that, it's a murder mystery while the movie is going on with these supernatural events and that sort of thing. And it doesn't the character play about him, but the victims of the next victim or whatever will have a number that shows up, it gets carved in their forehead, right? And it glows, and it has some pretty, for the time, pretty good special effects. Now, 20 years later, they're still okay, but yeah, it is a Peter Jackson film. It does have Michael J. Fox in it. It does have good special effects. It's got a good story to it. And what it reminded me of, because I actually seen part of it today, is this like the Back to the Future of paranormal movies?
And what do you mean by that?
Michael J. Fox is in it, right? And Back to the Future has its own look.
Yeah.
And the way it's filmed and the colors and all that sort of thing and the cinematic angles and all that stuff, it's a quality film.
Okay.
It's not low budget. It's not weird. It's not off-putting. It's not jarring. When you watch this movie, you're not freaked out, on edge, and scared like you would be in a horror movie. So it's okay to be a participant in the movie and not be worried about the movie as far as being almost like a little kid and be like, man, I hope nothing gets on me from this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas some movies you watch, and it's just like, man, it's just too, I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like you watch it and you feel slimy. You know what I mean? It's like you're just like, it's not like that. So you can be a visual participant of this movie and not be worried about it, not have too much anxiety about it, that kind of thing. So you can actually watch it and enjoy it, much like a Back to the Future movie.
But
what?
Me as an adult, the more I watched Back to the Future, the more questions I had and the more anxiety I had about the concepts.
That's because you're older and that movie is coming up on what, almost 30 plus years old now?
Yeah, but just, okay.
So for the time, that movie was perfectly fine. 30 years later, some of it's kind of like, whoa, that's almost inappropriate now.
Well, not necessarily that, but like the consequences and just like some scary things, like the way in which, I mean, the professor guy, how he came about making the time machine and the materials and things like that.
Well, yeah, of course. But I mean, again, though, you're supposed to suspend a little disbelief because, come on.
Okay.
Same thing if you watch this movie. You can't be like, that's never going to happen because you can't. It's a paranormal movie. But the way it's filmed, the dialogue, everything about that movie, even though it wasn't as wildly popular as it could be, it's a good movie. It's a quality movie. It's not low budget. It's not sketchy. It's not weird. In a way that's just like, well, that's kind of off-putting. It's not off-putting at all. You could watch this cinematically. It was filmed very nicely. The action sequences were good. It's a quality put-together movie, and you could totally watch it. And there's not very many movies like that in the paranormal world that are that good.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you look at like Poltergeist, that was a great movie. It was scary, but at the same time, it was kind of grainy. It sort of, wasn't as a high-budget movie as it could have been, so it had a different sort of look to it. So even though it was popular and did really well, it was, just a couple steps above low budget. So that's the question. Is this the equivalent or close to the Back to, is this movie The Frighteners like the Back to the Future of paranormal movies? And yes, Michael J. Fox is in it, and he does a lot of running around like Marty McFly did.
Oh.
But he has a darker side to him. He's a little bit more gritty. And I wonder if he made this movie to kind of like maybe knock off some of the Marty McFly image. It's entirely possible. Yeah. This movie came out in 1996.
I cannot remember this movie. I looked at the cover on Wikipedia, and I cannot remember this movie.
Well, the good news is, since everything we talk about in our show notes we include on our webpage, which you can go to, it's CreepGeeks.com.
Yeah.
I do have a link that takes you to the IMDb page.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's called Frighteners.
Now I'm going to have to see if I can watch this.
And you can watch it on Stars and Prime.
Okay.
And it was on today, so I'm sure if you've got some kind of cable, whatever, if you have Dish or something, you can record some stuff. You could probably look it up and see. Yeah, so I don't even know what score it has. Okay, 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb.
That's not bad.
No, it's comedy, fantasy, horror. It's 2 hours long. It came out July 19th, 1996. It was directed by Peter Jackson. So, yeah, he made Hobbit movies and stuff. Well, I mean, that's good, right? I mean,
yeah.
You guys, it'd be like, it's good stuff. So, yeah, there you go.
Oh, wow. And you said 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb. It has a 6.2 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes. We all know they're pretty harsh. So, yeah.
So, anyway, good movie. You should watch it if you haven't seen it. If you do like it and you've seen it and you agree with me, let me know. How about that? Yeah. You can do that. We have a contact form that you can also fill out on our webpage, or you can go to the Facebook page that we have, our Facebook group as well. Just look for Creep Geeks. You'll find us. We do appreciate the interactions. Yeah. We also have a phone number. If you want to call that and leave us a message or something, you can do that. And I'll tell you what the phone number is as soon as I find it.
It is 575-208-4025.
There you go. So that's the end of my random thought. So, yeah. Okay, so before we roll into this, we're going to kind of sort of set the premise of the audio you're about to hear. It's basically cars and voodoo dolls, right?
Yeah.
So just to sort of set the backstory just a little bit, cars, personally, I think older cars that have been owned by lots of people and have a little bit of time, a little age on them, seem to develop souls, or at least I think they do, or personalities. Much like the yokai and the other thing I can't pronounce. I don't think the 100-year rule applies to it, because we've all had vehicles maybe that were, little quirky.
Or temperamental.
Yeah, a little crusty. And if you give your car a name, you're probably who we're talking to. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know very many people that have, like, a brand new car that has a name. We have named our car, our vehicles.
Yep.
Right? Like, we have your adventure mobile, right? Don't want to call it the Omi wagon, but, you know.
It pretty much is, because every name I've given the Trailblazer has not been family friendly.
Yeah.
And then for a while there in New Mexico, we had Debbie Dirtbox.
Yeah, Debbie Dirtbox was an older Honda CRV.
Who, if she was a person, she would be a waitress in a diner that was very crusty, gave you a little lip, but always worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's how, as a car,
and probably
she acted.
smoked those more 120s, those like big long brown cigarettes and stuff.
And
didn't have time for your garbage.
She would act up throughout the week, especially on the interstate, but on the weekends, she worked just fine out in the middle of the desert, four-wheeling.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
it was all-wheel drive, so I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But on the interstate, she'd throw a fit.
Yeah, she'd get mad. It's like, I'm tired. You know, she's the kind of car that after a long day wants to come home and take her shoes off and put them in one of those automatic feet bath things. You know what I mean? I don't know what those things are called.
The foot soak.
What?
Like a foot soak?
Yeah, there you go. Foot soak.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had an experience with a vehicle at one time that had something in it, and it became well known to us that thing was supposed to be in the car. And it kind of ties off some of the cars I've had in the past where I've just found weird random stuff in it. And it's like that stuff belonged to the car. It's almost like the car, if the car had its own little talisman or its own little thing, right, that it belonged to the car. And it was just sort of a thing that we sort of noticed. And it's like, you know, I noticed it, and then Johnny B noticed it as well. And it was sort of an idea that we sort of had in common that got cemented by the events that we're going to play for you here in a couple minutes. And the idea is that, you know, do cars have souls? And, you know, have you ever sort of had a vehicle that may have had a soul? And the idea of, you know, talisman in cars or things that belong to cars, or in this case, Voodoo Doll, you know, what do you think? You think that's junk? A junk idea, or do you think there may be something to it? And we talked about this in great and agonizing detail. And we also talked about some interesting things that are sort of occurring in the drone world, because Johnny B is a commercial drone pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he has a 9-to-5, but he also has his own business where he is a commercial drone pilot. So he's FAA certified, right? So he owns Beales Aerial Solutions, and he's FAA licensed, and he does aerial photography, and he's based out of Hampton Roads, Virginia. And he covers Hampton Roads, Virginia down into the Outer Banks and that sort of thing. So he does quality drone cinematography as well. He's a photographer. He understands how cameras work. I mean, you know, he's not just the guy that just flies around, snaps a picture, and that's it. He gets it. He understands how things work.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of work that he's doing on the side that he likes to do, is he does this commercial drone photography and cinematography as well. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is if you're in the Hampton Roads area and you're filming stuff and you're out there with your little drone and you're doing your cinema movies and stuff like that, if you want to be legal, you need to contact somebody.
Yeah.
You know, because what's the difference between a regular indie filmmaker with a drone and Johnny B from Beales Aerial Solutions? $1 million.
Really?
Yeah, he's got $1 million insurance policy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can get out there and fly your drone all you want. You know, if you smash it into something, or if you have a problem, or you cause an issue, especially if it's a commercial type situation where you're making a movie.
Yeah.
Your liability, man. I mean, you can really sort of wreck yourself with something like this. So,
we had that instance the year we moved from New Mexico where a dude with a drone was attacking people in a national park.
Yeah.
And he wasn't attacking. He was buzzing a little too close to.
Yeah, he's like dive bombing them and stuff like that.
Like mountain bikers. And because this particular area, every Saturday, mountain bikers were always on this one trail, this guy thought he'd just, take his drone and get a little too close. That can result in needing $1 million policy.
Yeah, because what if one of those guys on the mountain bikes fell off the side of it, broke his neck, and had to pay a $257,000 bill?
Yeah.
Do you think he's going to pay it?
No.
Probably not. You as a goofball with a drone are going to pay it. So
yeah. I
like the idea of having a commercial drone pilot who is certified, who is licensed, and who does have the insurance policy to come out and film some stuff.
Yeah.
So, because at the end of the day, whatever rate he charges would be way less than litigation, lawsuit, and liability that comes across from you thinking, I'll just sneak my drone up and grab a shot. So if you'd like to check it out, make sure to go to his Facebook page and check him out and give him a little buzz. And he knows and understands technology, which is great.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who don't, and this is somebody I trust with our drone photography.
Yeah.
And cinematography. So, because he's your photographer in the sky. So there you go. Okay, so at this point, we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to go ahead and jump right into our conversation that we recorded. And we're talking about cars and voodoo dolls. And it's basically story time with Johnny B. We'll be right back.
Audible is audio entertainment that entertains, educates, and inspires. For you, listeners of CreepGeeks Podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/cheapgeek. Again, that's audibletrial.com/cheapgeek for your free audiobook.
Okay, so we were kind of talking about voodoo dolls, cars, and souls, and the idea is that this primarily sort of works with used cars, I think, more than new cars. It kind of goes like this. If you've ever bought a used car and you find something weird that's in that car, from our experience that you and I both have had, John, it's probably best to leave that sort of one thing in the car. It's almost like the car's talisman, or what we call a voodoo doll.
Yeah.
Because when you
absolutely,
because we have a sort of a shared experience where at one time we picked cars up and kind of drive them for a while and sell them and that sort of thing. We picked up a Bronco, and it was like a maroon and sort of a tan roof colored Bronco, like an O.J. Simpson style Bronco. I think it was an 87 or something like that. That was called the Baconator, because all used cars and older cars need names, because that's part of the soul that sort of accumulates with an old car. And we found something kind of interesting in that. Actually, you found it. You found something kind of interesting in this Baconator. And I should say that for the most part, the Bronco ran fine. Everything was sort of good. But then something sort of happened after you found what Omi's about to show. And she's going to hold it up to the camera because we are super high tech.
Actually, he should tell the story of how he found it.
Oh, yeah. Well, we could do that too. Ooh, yeah, that'd be more dramatic.
We bought this Bronco. You were driving it. And then what happened, I guess?
So, yeah, back up a little bit. Like Greg said, this was in the mid to late 2000s, around 2007. Craigslist was really hitting its stride, and you could get cheap cars all over the place. So, like, anytime we got, a spare bonus or, tax return, something like that, we'd spend $2,000, $1,500 on a car, have fun with it, sell it, hopefully for a profit. So Greg got his idea that he wanted a big Bronco. So this thing, like you said, started, drove great, had like steering was loose, and that was about it.
Yeah.
So I took it to my house to do a little work on it, and one day I was going to drive it to work. And it was raining that day, so I drive to work, and it's pouring down in the parking lot. So I'm sitting there killing time before I have to go inside, and I pull down the sun visor, and this little stick figure falls down in my lap, which Omi has a visual of.
Yeah.
It looked like a doll. It was made up of some sort of hair. I can't say human hair, horse hair, some sort of hair wrapped in like old cloth, like really old falling apart cloth, and was hanging from the neck by like a fishing swivel. So, wow, this is really weird. Let me run in the office and show Greg. Greg, look what I found in your Bronco. Ooh, wow, that's really weird. Everybody, let's take pictures and look how creepy this thing is. Didn't think anything else about it. Go to leave that night, and the battery's dead. It's a 15-year-old car. Okay, the battery died, whatever. So we jump start it, get a mile and a half, 2 miles down the road, sitting at a stoplight, and it cuts off again. So we try to jump start again. It won't jump. We are like a mile from my house. Go to my house, get a new battery, take the battery, put it in it. It won't start. at all. This battery I know is good. So we go back, get another battery, put that battery in, and jump starting with jumper cables, and it won't start. It won't even crank over. It just clicks. Sounds like a dead battery. So we end up with a third battery. This one came out of my wife, now then girlfriend's Jeep. So we know it's good. Finally get this thing to crank over and get it home. Okay. I'm assuming the alternator's bad at this point. The next weekend, go to put an alternator in. The whole time, this doll that we found is at Greg's desk at work, not in the vehicle that it belongs in. Put an alternator in this thing, go to start it up, and it fires up great. Boom, starts right up. About 10 seconds into running, it goes, boom. Something goes flying out from under the hood into the neighbor's yard. And I go and check, and I look, and I see a spark plug wire dangling down with the threads still in the head of the engine. So it had dislodged the spark plug and shot it across the yard just as soon as I started it up. Wow, that's really odd. First the alternator goes out, now the shot a spark plug out. So anybody's had to pull threads out of a head knows that takes a little while without pulling the head off of the block. So a good weekend spent pulling that out. I got the plug out, go to fire it up, starts up, everything's great. I'm going to test drive it. I back halfway down the driveway and the brakes stop working. Pedal goes all the way to the floor. Brake fluid all over the place. Oh, wow. Okay. Greg, there's something going on. And Greg's like, we got to put that voodoo doll back.
Yeah.
But we're going to sell it at this point because we're scared of it.
Yeah. So, for those of you looking right now, this is the actual voodoo doll that came out of the Baconator.
Yeah.
And I've seen little voodoo dolls in the past and things. This one was ultra creepy because it looks real, man. Inside the head and the body stuffing, there's this weird stuff in there. It seems legit. It's actually hanging off my can of bacon.
Yeah.
Because I have
a can of bread and bacon. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had that can.
Survival pack.
What, 10 years now, or 8 years now?
But the voodoo doll was in your desk while John was having all these problems.
Yeah, no, it was hanging up. It was at my little workstation desk area and just hanging there proud, just like that on that can of bacon on top of bread.
I'm trying to get the glare.
So this thing just giving us the heebie-jeebies to begin with. When we put it back, we like hid it in the spare tire in the back. We weren't going to advertise somebody test driving. And, a week later, found somebody on Craigslist to buy it. And it successfully drove 15 miles from Chesapeake to Virginia Beach. No problem. We delivered it to this guy. He was happy with it. Everything was good. As soon as this thing went back in, it drove down the highway, no issues.
Yeah.
But the second you take it out, 4 things went wrong between a 4-mile drive from my house to work.
Yeah.
Didn't I have to pick you up once? Because it broke down? Or was that...
Probably. That may have been.
I think
because Greg might have still been at work, and I was like, "Hey, this thing's abandoned me on Military Highway."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I thought either Greg or me had to pick you up on George Washington Highway, like near the bridge, because it stalled again. And the thing, where you guys drove it from back to your place, it ran fine.
It ran fine the whole time it was at our house, too. It never had a problem. It's like it cranked right up first time, every time. Everything was great. But once the doll got removed from the car, it was like, that's it. Everything went wrong. And I've had cars in the past that's had issues, but I've never had like battery, alternator, spark plug, brakes, and just like a systematic failure of everything in the car, all of which will kill you. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, the turn signal stopped working. It's like, now you have no brakes. Now your engine will lock up, You're running out of power on the highway. It was just crazy, man.
The brakes thing, though, I remember that because that was just ridiculous. Like, you backed out and they were just, like, they were suddenly...
just dumped right there in the yard, yeah.
And we did have somebody ask a question. They wanted to know, did you tell the new owner of... No, we did not. Nope.
That's finders keepers. You bought it, you own it. It comes with whatever it was. And I am a skeptic, okay? I'm not one to believe something, if I don't see it firsthand. And normally, it wasn't a Christine scenario. This thing just didn't have a will to live, and it did not want to be on the road anymore.
Yeah.
But,
And plus,
hear me now, believe me later. This 1989 Bronco or whatever it was had some issues, and that is the culprit right there.
Yeah. We actually talked about it. Like, do we tell people? Do we let, and the thought was, if we tell somebody and they buy it and they take it out,
Yeah.
not that it would just cause problems, because, when you get an older car, it's basically as is. But the fear was if it got removed from the vehicle and they were driving and you lost like steering or something crazy like that, you could probably kill yourself to death with it. So
Yeah.
it was.
Well, that's a part of why we delivered it to the buyer, because we had the good conscience to know it made it down the highway to this guy's house.
No
Yeah.
problem.
And that just further solidifies that had something to do with it.
And it ran. I mean, it was a good running. It ran better than some of the cars we had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, I wanted it because I was like, I really want this thing, and it was too big for me to try.
Well, fun fact: the guy I wanted buying this thing. I think it was like for $700 or $800, and I was going to give him $600. He went out and was like, "I love it," and immediately threw away any bargaining power I had. So I want to pay $800 for this thing, like right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like, well, that's not cool. But
Yeah, it needed like tires and suspension work, and that was it. It didn't have it. It didn't smoke. It didn't leak oil or nothing.
and it looked good too. It was nice and clean. The paint was good. It washed up and cleaned up real nice, and it just
It drove
didn't
great. Like, brand new brakes, brand new alternator, a new spark plug tune-up. Yeah, it drove great after that.
But when I tried to do research on the Voodoo Doll and the way it looks, because like you were pointing out, it has a lot of unique features. It's got like fish hooks and stuff sticking out of it. I really couldn't find anything.
And the cloth that's made up of the black piece, that's somebody's cloth,
Yeah.
and it's got burlap, and it's got more than just, it's got hair, and like it's got real legit like personal whatever you call it from
Mojo.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen them in the past. It's like they don't do anything. That one, it was just off. I didn't
Yeah.
like it.
So here's something. Since you two kind of you worked together and you sat kind of close to each other, when it was on your desks, did anything weird happen? Do you remember?
I never saw anything. I think it was just bound to the car.
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't. I mean, it was there and it was creepy, and I got told to take it down. That kind of thing. But
Yeah.
there was nothing like, I had like problems or anything like that. It was just like it became obvious that, oh, let's put this back in the truck and see what happens. And as soon as it went back, everything was fine.
Yeah. Just cranked right up.
So it was like it wanted to be there. And the weird thing is, it's like looking at it now, because this was a while ago, it's okay, so it was bound to the truck, but who is the effigy for?
Mm-hmm.
And the truck came from the Outer Banks.
Yeah, so the dude used it for fishing. Had all kinds of
Yeah.
fishing stickers and stuff on it.
And there was like pier passes and stuff like that. So like the guy who got it probably from like an auction or whatever, never did anything but sell it. It was just kind of a weird thing. And from like that point on, after looking back in my past and thinking about some of the cars I've had, it seems like if you buy a used car and you're in the process of cleaning it out, if you find anything that's just like out of place or whatever, you probably shouldn't take it out.
Yeah.
And that's been pretty much my thing ever since. I don't, like the Great White Buffalo, it had a spoon, just something weird, completely out of place. I've had Volkswagens that have just really odd stuff in them, and I've kind of left it in there and never had any issues. It just, I don't know, it's a strange thing. So that's kind of the question. Has anybody else maybe had like a car with some weird stuff in it, stuff that just doesn't belong, and had sort of a similar issue? That's kind of what we're looking at, is trying to figure out if this is sort of a common thing. Because, I mean, a lot of people are kind of like that when it comes to like houses and stuff. Like you leave maybe something from previous people who live there. So ever since the Voodoo Doll thing happened, and that's what we call anything that's sort of left over in a car. Like cars have talismans and things like that. Like I think somebody brought up Christine. Didn't Christine have like a Catholic medallion or something in it?
I don't remember. So, but you were saying you're a skeptic. So has any other weird stuff, even remotely close to that, happen on any other project car you've had?
Yeah, I had another RV that is a big Class A that tried to kill me a couple of times.
Yeah.
When we first got it, we noticed right off the bat, right on the inside of the door was just an old keychain, and it was kind of weird. Like if you would move it, like the thing wouldn't start or something weird like that. But nothing quite as dramatic as the Baconator, whereas you take this out and there is an obvious change to the vehicle.
Yeah.
You know, some little quirks and, you know, sputters when something else is moved or not around. That's the only other thing I think of. The other vehicles I've had didn't have like a soul, like, you know, something old like that one would have that's been abused and used and taken out, and somebody spent a lot of quality time in it and with it, and, you know, cared for it for 30 years. So I think that's where it just comes from. It was absorbing all the energy of somebody putting it into this car.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I had a car in San Diego. If Brittany's still watching, she liked it, but it was it was like a 74, I think it was. We called it the Lime Green Love Machine. I can't think of what it is right now off the top of my head, but it was a Plymouth something. But it had like 4 doors and all that stuff, and it had the big bench seats and all that. And I actually bought it from this old guy who lived at the Lawrence Welk Resort in Lake Elsinore, California. It's like this whole resort community built around golf courses, where Lawrence Welk was the reason why you would buy it. It was weird, man. And I got it from the old guy who owned it, who I found out like passed away like 4 or 5 days later. And it was all cleaned out and everything. And when I was driving it home and I was talking about the car, because it was cool, because it was driving real nice, I'm like, yeah. And it had like a rag top, and the rag was coming off, and it's kind of flapping in the breeze a little bit. But it was this weird sort of minty green. And when I started talking about the car and how much fun it was going to be, I had to hit the brakes pretty hard because I wasn't paying attention. And it sounded like rain was just coming through the car, almost like if you dump open like one of those like Amazon rain stick things, you know, it has a little beam there. And what it was is this guy was a golfer, and there was like 1,000 golf tees that had got in the trunk underneath the metal. And when I hit the brakes real hard, they all rolled forward to go underneath the floor pan, because I spent hours sucking those things out with a vacuum cleaner. But it was just crazy, man. I wound up leaving most of them there just because it seemed like, you know, that was the thing to do. And so when I would buy a car and find something weird in it, I would just kind of leave it. But the Baconator, that was like, I don't know how to describe that. That creeped me out to the point where it's like, I would debate when we get another car and go, okay, is that supposed to be in here or not? You know, is that is this going to be the thing that makes the car blow? Or
every used car I have gotten since that day, as I've gone thoroughly through, and anything that's out of the ordinary, it gets left alone. You know, it's fine under the floor mat. I'll never see it. It can stay there.
Yeah.
It can stay in the glove box.
Yeah, spoon in the sidewall, it'll stay.
Yeah. The old camper van we had, the Great White Buffalo, gosh, we found that like the second or third day that we brought it home.
We were taking seats out.
Yeah.
And there was this random spoon.
Like cafeteria spoon. And we were like, I wanted to throw it away though, because I had some concerns. Maybe the spoon might have been used for something.
Mm-hmm.
But with
like maybe eaten?
No, with the experience of the Baconator, he's like, no, we're leaving it in the vehicle.
Well, it used to be a senior assisted living van. So you never know. That might be some old geezer who loved riding in the senior assisted living van, going to the mall or something. It's just, you know what? Spoon can stay. Yeah. We relocated the spoon to the glove box, and that's where it stayed. And we just made a mental note: never use this spoon, because you don't know who's been doing what. But
yeah,
you know, and with that thing, we had very few, if any, real problems caused by anything out of the ordinary, except for driving stupid. That was me, but it was just And then in the ProMaster, I looked around to see if there was anything out of the ordinary, but it was brand new. And I kind of think that when you get a brand new car, they don't have souls yet.
No.
Yeah.
I think
somebody's got to be sitting in it for a while.
Yeah. And it's like, there used to be a book called, I think it's like Care and Feeding of Your Volkswagen, where the dude talks about, you know, loving your Volkswagen Bug and how to fix it. It was a super hippie manual. And it basically says, love the car you're in, or no, love the seat you're in, for its ass carries you somewhere, something like that. And it's basically trying to say that, you know, from you putting all your energy when you're driving this car, and just your energy in general gets sucked into the car and becomes part of the car. So if you're driving along and you have sort of bad thoughts about your vehicle, it's going to know and it's going to act accordingly. And it kind of goes to almost the same theory as like, if your car drives or runs like crap, you should probably give it a bath and clean it up, show a little bit of love, and it'll run better.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just something that I thought about the other day about the whole Voodoo Doll thing. And it was just like, man, that thing was creepy. And then I spent like 3 days trying to find the picture.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, went through all the stuff, made a huge mess. And it's like, okay. And then last night, I walked right to it. It's like, there it is. It's like, how was that?
But I'm interested because, like, when this all happened, it was years ago. So I was only able to do a little bit of research. If anybody else recognizes this type of thing, let us know. I'd love to find.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a certain following that it comes from or an energy it's supposed to have, I would love to know any details or history on that thing.
Yeah, because short of, like, the fishing hooks and the style of the fabric, it doesn't really have like any other markings on it. And I'm used to voodoo dolls having at least maybe something written on them or some sort of symbols or something. So
I think that's what makes it legit.
Really?
The fact that it was just like straight up, ain't no time for that junk. You know, and it wasn't pierced or anything. It was just intact and just had been in that car for a long time. I don't know, man.
Dirk is our friend Dirk, he's contributing that, you know, not necessarily haunted, but the cars definitely develop a personality over time. Same with old planes. You have to hold your mouth just right when starting it.
Yeah.
You have to hold your... I've heard that one. Like,
oh, yeah.
I just knew somebody who had to hold their breath for like 30 seconds almost. You know?
I think boats and ships and stuff are like that too. They just have certain quirks and stuff that develop over time, but I think a lot of it, you know, I do think that, you know, some of these things absorb, you know, the personality or just the overall, what's that stuff called? Chi.
Yeah, especially like boats and planes, something where you're in more mortal danger when things go wrong.
Yeah.
You know, there's got to be something that can feed off of that fear, yeah.
I mean, like, with a car, you just try to pull over to the side of the road or the side of the interstate. With a boat or a plane, you're either dropping out of the sky or you're...
Yeah, a plane, you could at least hope that you can glide in or coast. I think a boat, you're going to sink, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you're just going to float out to sea. Hope for the best.
Yeah, I don't know what's worse, yeah.
Yeah, some houses get that feeling too. You ever gone to somebody's house and it just doesn't feel right? And you're like, you know, then you go to other people's house and it's just warm and inviting and it has that good feel. I think it has a lot to do with it. I just think that these things over time just suck up so many different personalities and experiences and, you know, all of this stuff, and it just sort of comes back to you. And there's also a theory going around that even though we think that all these things are inanimate, they actually aren't. They are animate. And if you could figure out how to communicate with them, they would talk to you in some way. And there was a Mysterious Universe episode a long time ago I listened to. And there was a Mysterious Universe episode from a long time ago where this guy somehow or another figured out through meditation or whatever how to talk to his inanimate objects, and his couch was really pissed at him. His couch hated it. It's like, because whenever he sat in, it was uncomfortable. The springs would get him. He hated that couch. That couch hated him too.
They're called yokai.
Yeah, yokai.
So, yeah.
And he wound up taking that couch and just giving it to someone else. And the couch loved the other person. Like, and the guy was like, this is the best couch I've ever had. I love it. You know, always, you know,
but
it's sort of a weird thing.
Yeah, yokai can possess any household object, anything from umbrellas, lamps, tea kettles, or like we've been talking about, cars.
Yeah.
The fact that they're so temperamental means, I guess that kind of encourages the philosophy of taking care of the things that you have. And John took care of the Baconator. So Ave, was it because of it didn't have all of its missing pieces? Which
I don't know. I'm kind of thinking
doll?
it might be slightly different with yokai versus what was going on with the Baconator.
No.
So I don't know.
Dirk jumped in with his he had an old Ranger, and you had to stomp the gas pedal 7 times. Any more, any less, and it was a no-go.
How many times did it take you to figure out 7? Yeah.
Well, so I had a Ford Escort station wagon, and the key ignition was so worn out that you couldn't really even start it with its key anymore. And it got to the point where I had to use a fork, and on the 3rd cup, it would finally go. But any more, any less, because any more, you'd end up stripping the cylinder I had that thing for 2 more years after that happened. I sold it with the fork.
I had an old bug.
Yeah,
Turn the
here's
key.
your spare key.
I had an old Volkswagen, old bug where when you turn the key, you had to count to 4, and then it would crank over.
Yeah.
And I think it was just because the way the ignition switch and the wiring were, that's how long it took to get all the juice. But anything, and if you turned it sooner than that, it would just flood the crap out of the car and you were done. But like 2 seconds, that's when the lights would actually come. It was weird, man. I want to going through and cleaning every electrical connection with WD-40 and a wire toothbrush, thinking I would figure out where the poor connection is, and it made it worse. And tools are like that too. I think when you get a tool and you pick it up and everything is great, and then you get another tool and it's just terrible. I don't know, like bites you.
I don't need to learn to communicate with my tools. I've got Harbor Freight impact wrenches that absolutely hate me.
You know, it's funny, man. Harbor Freight is like real hit or miss. Sometimes you get something that just is perfect and runs and lasts forever, and sometimes you get stuff where it's like, man, if this thing blows, it's going to blow my eyes out, and it acts like it wants to.
Yeah, I've got one that won't work unless you bash it on the concrete a couple of times, and then it starts working.
I had a grinder that was supposed to go at 10,000 RPMs, and that thing would spin so fast it was really scary. I wouldn't even use it. Like you expect the grinder to be quick. This thing, it was like it wouldn't. The noise kept getting louder and louder. It was like it just kept spinning faster and faster and faster. I'm like, saying it's gonna blow apart.
Mm-hmm.
But this is making me think, like,
What does Brittany say?
oh, Brittany was mentioning that her Ford Escort wouldn't let her have the key when she turned it off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I only had a Sentra that would do something like that. Like it wouldn't crank over all the way, or
That piece of okay, so
yes, absolute.
either it wouldn't let you start, or it would start and go fine. You turn the key off, and then you couldn't get the key out, and then it wouldn't start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was part of this like brake pedal safety bypass interlock system, and I fixed it one time by drilling a screw right through it to hold it all together so that it wouldn't become unbypassed. We got to that place at South Hill. What was it? Bojangles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was 1,000 degrees. Went in there and got a chicken biscuit and some iced tea. Came back out. That thing would not start. I started sweating in my own eyes, and I was done. It's so hot. I got on the GPS on the closest car dealership. They called and picked us up because we called them, and I basically told them, look, if you want to sell a car today, send somebody to come get us. And they did. They sent this guy named Donnie. And then about 20 minutes later, we called you on the phone.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, can you log into work so I can show I have income? And then we want to buy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But they were so
not to confuse situations. That one wasn't anything like supernatural or paranormal. It was just a piece of junk.
Yeah.
So there's a story about that car, though, that I never really talked about, and it's the fact that I purchased that car because somebody I was dating at the time convinced me to, and that car was always acting up. Most of the time it was like tire trouble, but every time that person I was dating a long time ago, it always worked fine for him. So... And then we broke up, and then Greg and I started dating, and just everything just started falling apart on that car. It's like that car missed that jerk.
Brittany said, when dad gets hot, he's done. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Went in my own eyes. That's it.
But that car dealership was really nice because they picked us up. We got the Trailblazer. They even let Ben ride with us.
Yep. They picked up
Oh,
Ben
yeah.
side. They gave him some. Check it out. They gave our dog delicious cold water and pizza, and we didn't get nothing.
You got a cold coffee.
I got a cold coffee. It was supposed to be a regular coffee. We didn't get no damn pizza. But the dog did, and the dog got pictures taken, and he was on their like Facebook page. We didn't get nothing but
And
it was a time.
somebody brought up a good point that some people seem to connect with machines or cars better. They've watched, an apprentice mechanic mess with something for half an hour, and then either his boss or himself would touch whatever that tool or thing was, and it would start working.
Yeah.
And I kind of see that with like cars, especially because they just seem so finicky. Like some people have a great experience with vehicles, some people have a nearly supernatural experience.
I think that's where you get your brand loyalty too. Your guys that are just in love with the Fords or in love with the Dodge or Chevys.
Yeah.
That's true. That's definitely true.
They have that connection. Yeah.
And it's and that's the funny thing too, is like with Chevy guys, a lot of them are like, I'll have my Chevy for 100 years. They'll put a new motor in it. They'll do all this crazy stuff that goes way above and beyond what you would normally do. And it's almost like you get to the point where you're afraid to buy anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of anything else weird happened with like voodoo dolls and stuff, but that was the big thing, was that. And it's like, how do you communicate that with somebody who hasn't owned a bunch of old cars, and I don't think they get it. I don't know. It's just kind of a strange thing. We were talking about it, and like I said, looking for that picture, because it was super creepy a long time ago. And I kind of wanted to know if it was still creepy, because we know a lot more, and we're paying a lot more attention to the weird stuff that's been going on. And it's still every bit as freaking creepy as I remember it. Oh, yeah. And here's the fact. I printed
in my brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I printed out those 2 pictures with a printer, been on my desk for like 4 years, and it died like right after. Very loud. It was like a MX 450 or something like that, and it screamed when it died, and it was so loud that everybody around me was looking at it. It was because then I had to get a newfangled one, which was nice, but I remember that thing just dying a horrible death.
I don't think we've had anything else though haunted. Have you, John? Like anything?
And nothing that I can absolutely say I can't find another reason for this. There's always lights in the woods or other things moving around the house, but definitively that stupid doll had a hex on that stupid Bronco. I can say that for sure.
Well, here's a question for both of you. If that Bronco were for sale again, like for $1, I don't know, would you get it?
I would look for the Voodoo Doll.
Mm.
And then I would, I don't know. See, you said if I hadn't no.
And you said,
if I went today to buy another vehicle and I drop the sun visor and something even remotely close to that falls down, I'm walking away. I'm not buying that, even if they give it to me.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I think one of my friends was looking at houses to rent recently. And in the closet, there's just some like Wiccan rune symbols. And they were like, nope, perfect house, perfect place. No, not going to rent it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, granted, they couldn't tell me what they looked like. It could have been something nice, like a house blessing.
Exactly. Yeah.
But just the notion of it creeped them out so much that they weren't going to do it.
Well, we probably wouldn't do it either, because, I mean, you can draw anything you want. You can put a smiley face up, but if your intent is to cause chaos.
Yeah, something like that, I'd stay away. Salt in the windowsill, okay, I could probably look past that. But there is, absolute more markings or anything that I'm not able to identify. Yeah, I think I'd stay away from that.
Okay.
So Dirk says he'd buy it and build a little shrine in the glove box for the little guy. Run like a champ forever.
That's one way to look at it. That thing may have never, ever needed another repair ever because of that little happy guy hanging in the from the fishing swivel.
Probably rocking 370,000 miles. This is the best car I ever had.
And that makes me wonder, if the doll had never left the Bronco, would it have been okay?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the evidence points to yes.
Yeah, really. Because, I mean, he put it back in and it was no problem. Drove it a couple more days, and then, on the highway, at highway speed for like 20 miles, not a problem at all.
Yep, absolutely. It
was almost sad to see it go. Not really.
I think, there was second thoughts going on. He's like, man, maybe we shouldn't. Like, dude, you got to get rid of this thing before it kills us both.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to take that spare tire out, the whole thing's going to burst into flames or something.
Or you want to drop the tire, it'll bounce back up and basically break your neck.
Yeah.
Hit you in the face or something stupid. So, I don't know. It was kind of, it's kind of one of those things where you look at it and you're like, well, it could be this, could be that. It's people are like, oh, you're just superstitious or whatever. But, what does it hurt?
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt anything. I will say the one thing that I'm not really too worried about is like sports superstitions where it's like, oh, I got to keep this same pair of underwear on for like 4 months. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, dirtbag. You can do all that all you want. I don't think it has really any real impact on chance. But if the idea of you not changing a certain thing to keep your winning streak is, and you have that much belief in it, it probably does have some slight impact, at least in your well-being. But for me, I don't think it would have the same, sort of thing. I'd look at that and be like, well, whatever, I don't know.
Yeah. If you get up in the morning and you put on your left sock before your right sock and go through that routine, if you're in the mindset that that's going to make you have a better day, so be it.
I tell you what, though, if you put your sock on and then put your shoe on and tie it before you move on to the next one, you're a freaking serial killer. Exactly how you find out that. That's some weird stuff right there, man.
But that makes me wonder, though, like, that goes into the realm of superstitions. Do you guys have any car superstitions?
Yeah, don't take the Voodoo Doll out.
That pretty much sums it up.
Yeah. I don't miss the Baconator at all. I kind of miss the Voodoo Doll. Like, I would
have taken more pictures of it, that's for sure.
Yeah, I could have taken, like, close-up, really good pictures.
Yeah.
But
it would have been great to see more of the inside, like identify what kind of hair was in, because it was packed with hair.
Yeah.
It was very coarse, very dark hair.
That's
so. But I wasn't going to go ripping an arm off to find out or anything like that.
Well, that's the other thing, because I was looking at the seams on it. The seams are tight.
Oh yeah, it was wrapped, and there wasn't sewn or glued or anything. The whole thing was entirely wrapped together, like wrapped, and then the edges were tucked in.
And then the cloth, the shirt, it was just weird, man. I mean, it looked definitely handmade, and it looked like it was made with a purpose, and it didn't look like it was anything but to do whatever it was supposed to do. It didn't look like, oh, let me go to a tourist shop down in New Orleans and go to a voodoo shop and get like a little 99-cent voodoo doll to go around and scare people. It looked like it looked real to me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you can watch 13 seasons of Supernatural, never see nothing like this.
Yeah. That's true.
But, okay, so everybody knows Ghost Adventures, and Zach Baggins opened up that museum in Las Vegas. He got Jack Kevorkian's van that he did his,
Okay.
I'm wondering if there's something in that van that might be spooky or a voodoo doll.
He's done shows where there's supposed to be, there were supposed to be EVPs and stuff like that. But, I mean, if everything you buy is haunted, man,
God, I can't imagine.
Even if other stuff's not really haunted, I think it would have an impact. But I don't know. That place is pretty creepy, I guess, because all the stuff he's got in it. But
yeah.
Because if you watch the shows, you got people passing out. It just makes you wonder if there's certain parts of his museum are so hot you just stroke out while you're in there, or if it really is something going on. But
that, or if it's just anxiety. I mean, the human brain's going to start to think and see what it wants to. So
yeah,
you got to look at it both sides of the coin. Is there something causing this, or is it self-inflicted?
Or both.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell people what you do? Because you do something that's super cool, especially since I can't look up. A little bit of a distance for me.
Yeah, I started a drone business as a side hustle. I still do the daytime 9 to 5, and side hustle, I fly drones, real estate photography, roof inspections, solar inspections,
cinematic endeavors,
little cinema, some beauty shots, whatever I can do. So basically, professional photographer at 400 feet.
Very, very nice.
Dirk in the chat, he flies toy planes for a living.
Yeah, not like the real pilots or real airplanes. I fly the toys.
But I know you've done a couple of kind of nature-y locations. Have you ever seen anything strange, or what's the funniest thing you've seen, I should say?
Down at the Outer Banks, I chased a fox around for a while, but
that's
I haven't
cool.
seen a whole lot of wildlife or anything like that. Most of what I've been out doing has been right in the city, right on the sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
So not a whole lot of anything to really chase around.
See, the thing, I don't know, man. I can just see where you'd be out there doing something like that and having somebody come up and wanting to talk. What are you doing? You're allowed to fly a drone. Why are you flying a drone? All that sort of stuff. Even though you're...
Yeah, anyone that flies as a professional, they run into that. And the main thing is visibility. Wear a high-vis vest that says, I am a certified FAA drone pilot.
Yeah.
I have all my certifications with me, so if anybody needs to see anything, boom, there it is. So far, I haven't really been hassled. Just a few people asking what's going on, what it is. No real Karens have come out of the woodwork yet, so nothing to worry about there.
Nice. So do you know, it's just a kind of a weird question. Since the national parks have kind of come back around to where you can actually film in them now, it used to be for a while you couldn't film in them without a permit, like even doing regular filming. But since they've the Supreme Court reversed that rule, basically saying that if you're out there and you're filming, whether it's commercial or private, you can. Has any of that sort of trickled over into the drone world? Because you'd see so many amazing drone footage shots of these national parks. And it's like every one of these guys are illegal. Every single and
that rule that they ruled on doesn't apply to us. The most technical sense is you cannot take off or land inside of a national park.
That's still there?
Oh.
Yeah, you can a state park, but not a national park. Now, here's the thing. You can fly over a national park, but you can't take off or land from it. So if I'm on private property across the highway, I could fly right over anything. I'm sure a park ranger would still come over and say something, but as the law is written, I mean, they can't stop airplanes from flying over. You can't stop a hang glider from flying over.
Yeah.
An unmanned aircraft is really no different than that.
I wonder if it applies.
That kind of sucks.
Yeah. But I wonder if it applies to like BLM land and like fish and game land, because they are all separate divisions.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the Southwest, BLM land borders a lot of National Park Service land, and it's all just as beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. My thing is like, with like the drone work that you do, what I would love is for like some of your drone work and somebody with your skill level to capture some of these cryptids and some of these spooky things that everybody talks about. I mean,
well, it's about to get a whole lot easier too, because we're in March now. Yeah. Later this month, the rules for night ops have changed to where we can fly after dark with proper equipment. So yes, going up at night with thermal imaging equipment would be an absolute delight.
That's huge.
that is big.
Yeah.
Finally,
Very, very nice.
Finally settle the question if there's like really Bigfoot out there in Marion, Carolina, you know, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
General, you know.
That's pretty slick. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
And then, and Dirk's just, you know, talking about your loophole, take off outside the park, control the drone, and then, you could then, as the pilot, sit in the back of a pickup truck as it drives through.
Yeah, you could try that. And so that makes me wonder, though, if you're out there, and we've had experiences in the past, battery drain, camera malfunctions, all that crazy stuff. I would hate to be out doing some kind of cryptid investigation and lose your $4,000 drone because you're trying to swoop over and see something.
Yeah, watch a pine cone come flying up at you or something. Yeah.
We're like, what is that? And drone's gone forever. Because you know what would happen? It would just turn off and just hit the ground. That'd be it. So if you ever do any commercial cinematic drone endeavors with somebody maybe doing some paranormal stuff, you might want to take your cheap drone with you. An old Phantom.
I've got enough to get the job done. So if anybody out there is looking to get something like that done, yeah, definitely hit me out.
Yeah, we're going to put a link to all your good stuff and your Facebook presences and all that good stuff. Yeah. Cool. Since we're about to lose our battery, we're gonna end this.
Yeah, you ready to wrap it up?
All right.
Very nice. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching.
Bye.
And sticking with us. And
thanks for having me.
This actually may work for us, so we're probably going to do this more.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. And you got to get some night footage, man. You should get a thermal. Well, they only like $9 million, right?
Yeah, about.
Stupid.
One of the thermal cameras for one of them is about $6,000 just for the camera, not the drone itself.
You know, for $6,000, you can almost hire Dirk just to fly around with flash.
That's right.
10 hours or so. Cool. Thank you very much, dude.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
So there you go. How'd you like that? Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
It was fun times. Some couple things that were brought up that I thought were really interesting, but we kind of talk about them, you know, towards the end there and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things I want to bring up with this, you know, drone stuff is that you can fly at night now.
Yeah.
Now, if you were just a regular drone pilot, like, you know, you got a drone for Christmas and you're out there whistling around or whatever, you've been allowed to kind of fly at night. But if you were doing it in any kind of commercial endeavor, you had to get a waiver to be able to fly at night. Well, as of March 2021, that's not the case anymore. So you can fly at night as long as your drone is lit. And what does that mean if you're, for example, say a paranormal/cryptid investigator?
My thing is, if it has to be properly lit, that means the anti-collision lights that can be seen for 3 statute miles and have a flash rate sufficient to avoid collision.
Yeah, that just means blinking red and green lights.
Yeah, but if you're hunting Bigfoot or ghosts, I'm going to lean more towards Bigfoot and cryptids. He's going to see those flashing lights, in my opinion.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
But you know what he won't see?
What?
No drone at all if you can't fly at night.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you've got a drone and you can fly high enough, he's probably not going to pay much attention to it. So, but the idea is that being able to utilize your drone at night, and if you're a commercial or if you're having somebody film something for you, or if you yourself are Part 107B or you know, just Part 107 certified and you're flying, now you can.
Yeah.
That's huge because imagine all the night shots you can get now.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're trying to be like an indie filmmaker and do this kind of thing, then, you know, hey, now it's just sort of opened up the door. And there are companies out there that now, since if you wanted to hire them to, hey, go out and fly around and capture some video footage or whatever, like say, like John, for example, you can and they can, and it becomes way much more less aggravating.
Yeah.
And there is a difference between like me flying my drone around and someone like John who actually has the hardware to fly around. The footage is going to be better. Way better. So anyway, kind of thought that was interesting, sort of tied in a bunch of different things that happened over the years, and the fact that we, you know, have sort of experienced this kind of thing and have known John for a long time. And I thought it was fun to talk about because he directly experienced all the stuff that we were talking about. And yeah, I think at this point we're going to go ahead and take a second to wrap up the podcast. You've been listening to us talk, and we do appreciate it. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let us know.
Yep, that's going to be contact@creepgeeks.com, or visit creepgeeks.com and click on the Contact Us form. We do want to thank our supporters for this episode: Dave, Isis, James, Bobby, John, and Adam. If you want to support us as well, that's going to be patreon.com/creepgeeks. Be sure to check us out on social media. We are trying to get that Facebook group to grow. It's going to be real easy to find, Creep Geeks Facebook. If you want to find out official announcements when we do new episodes, go to events, things like that, that's going to be Creep Geeks Podcast on Facebook. Definitely check us out. Give us a like. Like I said, we are trying to grow. And the big thing right now is events and new stories and new ideas for new episodes.
Yeah, and we'd like to thank Johnny B for coming on and talking to us for a while. We do appreciate it. And we look to utilize him in the future.
Yeah.
Because we have some things we've been trying to get rolling, man. It's like, you know, the way it's been the past couple of years so far.
Yeah.
Like, I can't say past couple of years, past year, and then now it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So there you go. So anyway, we do appreciate listening to the podcast. If you've been stimulated, yay! Enjoy your ramen.
I don't think
an off-brand soda.
I don't think anybody has yet. So.
No, but you know, who knows? Maybe somebody's been listening to this like a week from now and it's got stimulated. I don't know. I'm just looking toward the future.
They're listening to this with their 40-piece nugget.
Yeah, living here. I got 40-piece nugget and an extra sauce. Drinking my.
Or they put all that money towards a night FLIR drone. So.
Or paying rent.
That's true.
Yeah. Anyway, let's not just drag it down, but okay. Yeah, we're done. All right. So anyway, thank you very much. See you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.